Okay, cool.
So, Raffi, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We were talking about crypto. The market cap right now is it's like 3.8 as a whole. And I think what I've been reading is likely like 5 to 7 for the bull run.
Yeah, that's the same what I've been reading.
So, do you think Ethereum hits a trillion?
What is Ethereum at right now?
It's like 500.
I think it would get close. If I'm guessing, I would actually probably say like 900 billion, 920 billion.
Yeah. 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 I have as we were kind of talking about like looking at different coins, you're all in on XRP, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
used to be diversified, but it became too much mentally for me.
Yeah. I'm in a few different things. I'm in some AI projects. ICP just released this caffeine AI, which is this technology that allows you to create apps without having to code. So basically, you're able to make up the internet just with telling AI what you want, and AI is able just to do it all for you, and like it's instantaneous. So they released that this last weekend as like a beta, and it was super successful. So that was part of the reason why I've really looked into this project quite a bit, and I understand that a lot of the market is narrative, but as far as like a really good product, I mean, and as I was saying, the all time high was a lot at launch at like a $50 billion market cap. 50 billion isn't out of the question for a coin like that.
Yeah, and I think AI is really going to shine in about 4 years in the next bull run, but I do think it'll do well. I think people are going to see how well it does this bull run, and then it will really do well too, especially with all of the technologies catching up with the blockchain and the integration that's going to happen with it, the further encryption that quantum computing will add.
Yes, yes, it's going to be coming in waves as well. If you're following closely in the bull run, you'll see waves of AI coins, and then you'll see waves of gaming coins, and then you'll see
Yeah.
waves of DeFi and DePIN. So if you're following close, pay close attention to which ones are pumping and when, and then get into the ones that haven't pumped yet, and continue to kind of carry your profits along the way.
Yeah, what was the AI coin that I was in? I'm trying to remember it. It's been doing really well. I can't, I'm sure I'll remember in a
You
little
got
bit here.
render, you got fetch, you got
Fetch. It was Fetch.
it was
That's it.
fetch. Okay. Yeah, fetch is like 79 cents right now. So pretty cheap.
Yeah,
Yep.
where was I at in Fetch? I think it was cheaper than that.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
I got it
34
at
was the
40
low.
cents or something.
Yeah. Yeah, with these altcoins coming right now, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like I remember how much fun this was in 2020, just watching them all go up out the last altcoin season. It's like Christmas, but it only comes like once every 4 years.
Yeah, well, and the sentiment had been so bad in the markets too. I mean, I think you and I have talked about this before, but timing certain world events with market dips so you can blame it on those world events and all that, but kind of it being more of a controlled thing and more of like a deeper magical practice that they do. And of course, it's tied to the moon, and there's different
Yeah, it's a
what people
pattern.
call like magics that people tie it to. Or yeah, but it's also a chicken and the egg situation. It's like, are people doing it because they have astrologers with them, like a lot of billionaires do because they're using the astrology, or are they simply like acting on the astrology? I think kind of both can be true at once. But yeah, like it's that 4 year cycle though is crazy. And then even people who don't follow astrology, I think you've seen that chart where it shows like all those triangles on with the like they're like kind of pointed stalactites or whatever. It shows all the different years and where we'll be at. And so it's like after this year we go down for like 2 years and then we're going up even higher. And that's going to be
Yes.
the peak for the next 20 years or so.
And you're referring to crypto, correct?
This guy made it based on just markets in general. This
All
is not
markets
the
in
number
general.
came in the 70s.
Okay.
But he predicted out to I think it was 2050.
Well, in when you look at the Bitcoin charts or the overall crypto charts for each cycle, they're each one of them are the exact same
Yeah.
as far as the trend goes. It's actually kind of incredible. I'm just gonna pull it up on our screen here and share it with you just to for the audience at least so they can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. One second here. There we go. All right. Let's hit share just for a sec. There we go. Okay. So right here, I don't can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks great.
So here's the chart. Each one of them, you got 2012, 2013, 2016, 2017, 2020, 2021, and the 2024, 2025 looks the exact same. So you're correct. Where is it world events? Are there the same world events that happen over and over again that cause like these dips, or is that just kind of the cycle of of finance and
Yeah.
organized crime?
And I would add this, do those same forces, energetic forces that play on the markets, play on our psyche. And so the world events coincide with the market pumps and the dips, you know?
It's kind of wild to think about. So
But yeah,
th-
this altcoin season, it's gonna be exciting. And I'm seeing at least for XRP, $7 is the conservative estimate and
yeah,
15 is the higher end. So I'm kind of I'm eyeing between like 10 to 12. But I might offload as it goes up too, just to see. I don't want to be caught without a chair in the game of musical chairs that is alt season.
yeah, and the nice thing about crypto also is it's not going anywhere, and we're gonna be continuously producing kids 18 years old that can buy into the market. So we're still relatively early. In the next 20 years, you're going to have another, 20 generations of kids buying into crypto. Meanwhile, the older part of the population that isn't as much into crypto, is being phased out essentially. So being in the game even at this point, I know 119,000 for Bitcoin seems ridiculous, but we're still early in this whole process. I think I on a finance channel a few days ago, and this is extreme. I don't even know if I agree with this. It was like a CNBC finance channel. Somebody on there said with the way that the dollar is kind of losing its value, they wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin at like 13 million per token.
Yeah, I don't think that that's absurd at all because on top, like the dollar losing its value, you've got that aspect. There's going to be a huge incentive here. All this narrative is going on around Jerome Powell quitting or being forced to quit, being ousted because we can't fire the Fed chair because it's not part of the government. But
Yeah, isn't that
but
strange?
like but yeah, like so at that point, then the money printer goes burr, and all that money's gonna flow into because the dollar's being weakened, so people are looking for that safe haven. And it's really interesting to watch the Bitcoin dominance fall though as we're reaching this narrative because I wonder if that's gonna repump Bitcoin and bring Bitcoin dominance back up and further delay alt season, or if that money will go straight into alts. I feel like with retail, that money would go straight into alts because that's like kind of what retail tends to do is buy when things are high, when they're looking good.
Well, one thing's for sure, as far as this accumulation goes, I don't think we've seen anything like it as far as how long the accumulation has been happening and the amount of volume for sure we haven't ever experienced just because the market's much bigger than it was during the last bull run. Um,
Yeah, the accumulation phase in general, not even that it was a longer period than that 4 years, but just like you're saying, because of how the market was 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And then on top of that, XRP, because of its lawsuits, really missed out on the last one. So it was like a major accumulation phase. And we got that really early, insane pump after the election because of our much longer accumulation phase.
yeah, I saw the White House just at least the at least Congress passed that Genius Act, which would prevent a centralized digital currency in the U.S. So that's a massive win if the Senate passes it. I think tomorrow, which they're supposed to. Um, what's honestly shocked me about that when you look at the votes, it's like 200 people voted no on it, this bill because of that, and it just makes me think we have 200 people in power essentially that would prefer if we just centralized our digital currency for obvious reasons. You don't centralize a digital currency for any other reason than control.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're boomers, and the fact that they voted no really just shows how little they know about it. Because on one hand, it shows that they want that what's the word I'm looking for? The uh, institutionalized control of it, or like regulation is what I meant to say. But then on top of it, even with that going through, the way that they're doing it, and it's a funny way with the terminologies that they're messing around with it, but we still are going to have CBDC because all of the banks are issuing their own stable coins, and then these banks are owned, of course, by the Fed. It's more nuanced than that, but as a short phrase, they're owned by the Fed, or they get their ability to print money,
Right.
and like they're going to the Fed for all of their matters, and perpetuating what they're doing in the banking system. So like it will be we're still having CBDC. It's just not going to be called that. It's like, and really with the implementation of digital ID. And it's so funny this is happening all as Uranus comes into Gemini, but there's going to be the digital ID. Like even right now, you need an ID to have your wallets and to get set up on exchanges and all of that. So I definitely move my stuff to non-custodial wallets where it doesn't have my ID. Makes it easier for tax reasons and stuff like that too. But
I was just seeing that there is a few wallets that don't require ID. I think one of them was starts with like it's a PH, it's called like Phoenix or it's something like that. But yeah, I was literally just watching that advertisement where you don't have to upload your ID to trade on that page, which is really big.
that's great.
Yeah, yeah. Another coin that I've never been into, but I've read a lot about is Monero, and Monero is that coin in crypto that is 100% private as far as transactions go. That might be something to watch as you said, these banks build these stable coins and still influence the market and uh, do their best to centralize it.
Yeah, I've been it's come across my desk a few times in I'd probably say like 7 or 8 times, and I keep on putting it on my to-do list to really check it out. But yeah, I've heard people talk about it's definitely harder to use. I like the idea that it's not sold on very many exchanges, so that shows that they're doing something right with it. Um, and then I see people going on extreme campaigns on how it's used for, drug trafficking and all sorts of illegal activities. But they did the same thing with Bitcoin. So it's like when I see that narrative about it, I kind of know it's on the right track. I've always said with XRP, I'm aware of how centralized it is. I'm aware of all of the financial institutions that have partnerships with Ripple and all of that, and what it's going to be. I'm more looking at it for the money that I can make out of it, and then at a certain point, sometime in the next like 2 to 3 years here, I can shift that into whatever I'm seeing with the evolving market. Because
Did
that
you
is another big part of Uranus Gemini is it's going to be the coin that you don't expect will be the one that rises above to the top.
like Litecoin?
Exactly. That's really the main one I've kind of been eyeing because of the layer aspect of it and how it's bridging a lot of things too.
Right.
But there will be, like because the way that my astrologer was even explaining it was, it'll be you'll see this coin and you'll be like, oh well, okay, this coin like bridges between all of this, and this is like another layer on that coin. But then it will be this coin off to the side that's really little that kind of has little things that implement all of it like in a very minor way, which ends up being the one that rate rises up and buys out the others in terms of companies. And so
Right.
there will be like some wild power shift and surprise with that. Like that's Uranus being the planet of surprises like that, and it rules cryptocurrency.
It would be great if it was ICP. That's the one I'm hoping for.
Well, Matt, that was why it very well could be because that was why I invested when I did into ICP, was because I had a dream about it.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
I've actually read a lot of things about it throughout like the last week about how it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars just because of the technology and it's so far ahead of everything else. So it would make a lot of sense if let's say it does have that like Solana like recovery and it could grow. And it might not be by, 2030, but it's definitely a coin to watch. Did you
Yeah, I had an insane the dream I had. It was like it was the craziest dream, but it was like Matthew McConaughey. He like met me in a bar and he wrote down on a piece of paper to buy ICP, Polkadot, and believe it or not, Giga Chad. And it was like one of the most vivid and powerful dreams I've had in the last 2 years. But so I've been like looking at those coins like, do I should I like because it would be
yeah,
something unexpected.
you need to fulfill the prophecy. So, did you read about that wallet of like 2 billion Bitcoin that finally became active, ironically, after Ross
Yes.
Ulbricht is out of prison?
Yeah, that's what I remember reading comments on it, and people thought that that was his wallet.
$2 billion when you get out.
Yeah, I mean, and it was never touched. It would make sense with the timeline of his. It would make a lot of sense that it's his.
And if you just think about anyone that owned Bitcoin in like 2011 when it was 20 cents, if they had a wallet they never touched up until now, billionaire is probably like an understatement. I think it was, is it Satoshi that has, I think he's now like the seventh or sixth richest person in the world, whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is. I mean, it's just crazy. What's your opinion on Michael Saylor?
Yeah, I know that I think where you're going with it is a lot of people think that he is Satoshi, and I think that I do think that's possible. Really, what I'm seeing as far as the gematria that we use in my astrology crypto community. Like gematria, the numerology, the astrology, and all that stuff. There is some type of institutionalization behind him. Bitcoin itself is ruled by Saturn, and then with through gematria, you link that into Saturn as well, and the connections that it has, like the Satoshi Nakamoto, and breaking it down. The Satoshi Jubilee, I believe, is what it's called. That happens every 7 years too, like, or at least I don't know if it's every 7 years. I thought it was, because he's
Sure.
got his like his birthday too, that people will celebrate and everything. But every 7 years, it's not tied to these 4 year cycles. There's a 7 year cycle tied to it with Bitcoin pumping, and a 7 year cycle that's tied to Saturn squares,
Okay.
and like in the Saturn cycle itself. So it's like four Saturn squares equals a full Saturn rotation. And then
Are
that's why at 28, 27, 28, you have your Saturn return.
okay.
But yeah, so very so but Saturn rules institutionalization in a lot of different way, and like structures and all that. So it could make sense that that is it's him, because he's a very if you look at his chart, he's a Saturn ruled guy as well. So, and he would have access to that kind of stuff.
What's so funny about you describing crypto as this energy that comes in waves and goes up and down, pumps and then goes down. When I was in Costa Rica doing ayahuasca, I had at least spent about 2 or 3 hours visualizing what that energy looks like in crypto, and that's exactly the what I was told when I was working on myself, whatever it was, when I was going through this thought of crypto of how much it stresses me out. It was just a thought, right? And all of a sudden I'm envisioning these green and red energies going up and down, and the market will just, it'll just do what it's supposed to do. Just allow the market to be as it is. You can't control it. You can only just watch and then enjoy that energy. And um, since I've been back, it's something that has really fascinated me, and I think about it a lot. Is actually how beautiful crypto really is, and it's like a representation on what's going on in the world in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's a really special thing.
Yeah, and and it's so funny you talk about like the waves and all that because it is currency, so water, and really I can throw out all these different planets like XRP being tied to Mercury, Bitcoin being tied to Saturn, but ultimately the way that they aspect to the moon and the moon cycles is how you see these pumps and these dips. And it's always, leading up to the full moon is where you like start to get that pump, and then like right after is typically when you're starting to get the dips and all that. But it's shifted it a little bit with this moon cycle because of the Uranus Gemini. Also, this moon cycle is a moon cycle that was in Capricorn, so I expected that leading for the next whole moon cycle, you're going to just see across the board Bitcoin doing well with like minor dips, but just moving up because Capricorn is that abundance. It's the harvest, ruled by Saturn, of course. So Bitcoin is, yeah.
Yeah. And I think something has that is also going to help the market is when the ETFs do come for Solana and Litecoin. And that's why I am staked in a little bit of Litecoin, is because there is an ETF coming for it. And it just seems like such a dinosaur coin that dinosaur people would invest in it once they have the opportunity to. Does that not make sense to you?
Yeah, and that's the reason I'm considering going into Litecoin as well. I was thinking I would see where XRP is at. If I feel like it's going up higher, I might buy in a little bit more. It kind of depends, but I'm working actually a mock election soon here, so I have like more money to start investing. And I'm like, but that'll be done around like August. I'll be done like mid-August. So I was kind of like probably Litecoin and a little bit more XRP, but I've been eyeing Litecoin for a while now. So I've been waiting for a decent entry point.
Yeah. What election? What's that?
Well, we got the midterms coming up next year, so the mock election is just us getting ready for the new systems that are coming in
Oh,
with the election systems themselves. So I guess we have new technology that we're trying out and all that, and yeah, it'll just be like of course a fake one. Like all like even the people coming in will be workers, and we'll be doing it, and we'll just kind of be playing it out and everything. But I was
I
like,
see it. I see. So you're part of some
but the state
committee.
actually pays well, so I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. You're gonna have to get the 411 on that and let us know about it. What are these, the new Dominion voting machines or what?
Yeah, because of course I worked the election last time, and I mean those Dominion machines were just they were sketchy. I didn't I all the issues that I saw they were having were with Republicans. I
No
think it
way.
was
For real?
maybe five. Yeah. I think maybe 5% of the people who had and it wasn't like even user error because I knew which issues were user error and all that, but just of the issues with the machines themselves and nothing the person did. It was like 5% of the time it was a Democrat that it happened to, and then the rest of the time, and like I'm just good at picking that up off of people like what they're, and then usually I would see
Oh,
afterwards like what
okay. I think you need to admit right now on camera that you love your life and that you are not suicidal.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I'm a small fry, but yes, like I'm not suicidal. Oh my goodness. Especially with this energy. Speaking of that, I don't know if you've seen anyone around you starting to get really erratic and everything. Um,
I'm
like
not
in
going
the
to answer
last
that.
maybe week because
Okay.
I've got like a personal situation. I won't say who it is, but I've got some people around a person that I know that are trying to institutionalize this person, but she's actually just awakening. So I talk to her on a daily basis. I know her mental health is very good. And she's just, this the kind of stuff that you and I talk about that you talk about with your other guests. She's just getting into all this higher vibration, higher consciousness stuff. And the people around her are talking behind her back, trying to institutionalize her.
When you say institutionalize, I are you saying bring her somewhere?
Yeah, they're trying to like 5150 her against her will.
No shit.
And so I'm looking at her as being the most sane one. And then everyone around her is like freaking out because they're trying to hold on to this old world when all this new information and new ways of thinking are are coming out right now. And this is exactly, you and I were talking about this months ago, that when all of these planets came into these new signs, which were there now, all these
Yeah.
outer planets,
Right.
people who want to hold on to the way life has been are going to be freaking out about stuff. There's going to just be extreme mental health issues, but then it will die down by the fall. And to pay attention to those people who all of a sudden, when it gets to fall and into winter, that they are like, oh, everything's cool again. We're fine. Because like those are the people you want to watch out for. And it's just happening right before my eyes right now.
So, how does somebody have the authority or the ability to institutionalize somebody? Is this a guardian over, you know, somebody, or like, I don't
Yeah,
understand.
they're like they're family members.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And I'm just it's insane to me, you know.
Yeah.
Like and I guess but they're like extended family, so I don't know how they would do that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really just because like, you know, this person has children. So I think they're thinking that they can say that they think the children are in danger, but you know, like that's
Okay.
just not
Well,
something I viewed.
yeah. That's so interesting. I uh I think it's going to take a lot more than just some thoughts to get them institutionalized. But I think what is lacking in today's age is the ability to have a conversation even with somebody that you disagree with. I actually had this conversation today with a friend about having somebody on the podcast that disagrees with me about everything politically, and I welcomed the idea. I said that'd be great. Like we can just have a conversation. It doesn't have to be hostile. And I think the best part is agreeing to disagree is okay.
Yeah, and being okay with being wrong, but that has to be on both sides. Like both people have to enter that discussion with good faith.
Yeah.
They have to, you know, and I think for it to be constructive, like the most constructive ones I found where I disagree with people is that we're realizing everything we're seeing is just what we're seeing though, and what we're being told, and it may not be the truth.
Yeah.
Because that's really the only disagreements I can even find to have with people are on such surface level things that are meant to divide us anyway.
Yeah. And you know, there's a certain percentage, and I'm not going to get too deep into what percentage I'm talking about, but there's a percentage of people that operate delusionally. And what I mean by that is what's in front of them that doesn't actually exist. And that group of people continues to grow and grow bigger and bigger. It's almost like it's like part of it is people wanting to fit in, so they go and join the group, while the other percentage of the people are ill and they're essentially in some ways delusional. And it makes up a large percentage of one of the parties. And it makes it hard to ever vote on that side just because of how extreme it can get. And
Yeah.
I think you might be picking up what I'm putting down, but it
Yeah, there was an incredible graph on the diversity of thought differential between the right and the left, and it was shocking.
as far as how extreme it can get.
Yeah, it was on the, I mean, you know, I'll just say it, on the left it was extremely narrow diversity of thought, and then it branched out wildly on the right, and it was like a four-dimensional
Yeah.
chart with points on it where people fall in their ideological beliefs.
Well, it's very common for the far left to scream at people like myself that I'm a far right person when I'm not. I would actually consider myself more middle than anything, but because I disagree with maybe 5 or 6 topics, I'm far right. Which, by the way, there's far right policies I also don't agree with, but it just seems like there's a lot more logic on the right side than there is the left.
Yeah, I've had people where I've linked them things that are from very standard Republicans, and they say like this seems like far right to me, like I don't, you know, and I'm just like, well, this guy is actually like, like I used to be further right than this guy, but of course now I'm also a centrist, and this isn't even coming at the left when we talk about the diversity of thought, because the haven for diversity of thought used to be on the left, and
Yeah,
now it's shifted to the right. That's
right.
really all that's going on, and it will at some point shift back, like within the astrology itself that I've been talking about. It looks like the Democrat Party, it's failing right now. It's going to need to be completely reconstructed, but then the right's going to come right after that. And you can kind of just see it in what's going on right now. I mean, there's a civil war going on within the right. We're extremely divided on these Epstein files.
Yeah, it has put a tarnish on Trump's term to this point. And the way that he answers the questions and calls it a hoax is like he's talked about for over a year on his campaign about how he's going to release the files, and now he's calling them a hoax, and he's just continuously blaming Democrat officials who were in charge. But the truth of the matter is the Epstein suicide, murder, whatever you want to call it, or escape happened under on his term with his DOJ.
Exactly. And then it's like we all of a sudden start getting the extended version of him saying releasing the Epstein files, where there's like an addendum that he added. He's like, oh well, if it's this and that, and if people, then like, we want to be careful. And so it's just kind of like now all of a sudden we're getting this, and this, it's so funny because today we're talking and we're hitting Mercury retrograde, and this is for the next 3 weeks. So a lot of this stuff, like it's not like we're just going to brush it under the rug and move on from it. Mercury's going back in, and it's going to keep getting revisited, and we're going to actually kind of start to go back, and you'll see things come up that'll get pulled that have been from the last like 5 years or so, that'll start to enter the conversation, and this will really, really get discussed and talked about. But I found it very interesting that this was a day after he meets with Netanyahu. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
there's an issue. We're not doing anything with the files and all that. And then every time he's telling us this, or at least one of these times in the last 48 hours here, he's telling us this with his finance minister behind him, who's an Israeli national,
Okay.
who's a dual citizen.
It's funny you say that because somebody sent me a picture and they're like, "Who is this guy?" And I was trying to I took a screenshot of him, put him on like Google reverse image search, Chat GPT, Grok. Nobody could identify who it was. So that's who it is. It's his finance minister.
Yeah, and I wish I had picked up the name yesterday, and of course I already forgot it. But
Oh my god.
yeah, I'm like, it's not. I might be mixed up with someone else. I don't know. I don't think it's David Goggins. Is it? We can look up that name.
It's David Goggins. No, it's not. That can't be.
That's someone else. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I getting my wires crossed with someone else I was researching? I was
Yeah.
kind of, that's what Uranus Gemini's been doing to me, is I'm like, I got all these different branches I'm researching on, and I'm trying to like focus a little bit more.
This is so obvious. It's like it's so obvious what's going on. And maybe it almost is like the whole Trump denying the election in 2020 thing, whatever you want to think about it, like just let the shit go. And he never looked deep into it. He would only say, "Yep, election was cheated. They got away with it." Blah blah blah. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But this is the same thing. Like even Republicans were like, just say you lost the election and get over it. And it's the same with these Epstein files. Just release what you have and walk on. Like, why do you have to say that some of it is a hoax? Then go ahead and point out to us in the files what's a hoax and what isn't, if it's really that important.
Yeah, it just shows. Well, his name is Scott Besant, by the way. I
Oh,
had to look.
okay.
I was like, okay.
Okay.
But it just shows that we're living in an occupied nation. And that is the beautiful part of all of this happening. Like, because I can watch Trump and the MAGA movement fail, having voted for it, and still be happy about it because so much is being exposed. There's less and less trust even now, in the really the only people still hanging on to the faith in the government right now are like the MAGA boomers,
Yeah.
or the dual, we'll say the dual citizen MAGA people. Those are the only people. So it's really like not even split down the middle. It's like maybe at best a third that's with Trump and 2/3 against Trump right now.
Within
But
the base,
and this
yes.
is and this gets back into the narrow diversity of thought that's going on the left right now, because they look at this right now and they're just like, oh well, like sipping tea, like I told you so, and like all this stuff, and they have no context for what's even going on. And it's almost funny to see them pushing with us for the Epstein files
Yep.
because it's like something that will actually unite us. So it's like there's a silver lining within all of it that is really going to bring the right and the left together because we've got the two-thirds of the right that is so against Israel, and as far as I know, it's most of the left that is very much against
Well,
Israel.
and you
But both of
also
us have all of these people, these politicians that are totally in bed with Israel and APAC.
you have the left fighting right now with the whole New York mayor situation, the mom Donnie that's running, who wants the government grocery stores and like these total social policies in New York. You won't own your properties anymore, all these things. So what I'm watching right now is the Democrats trying to scramble and cover that this mom Donnie, maybe we don't haven't talked to him enough. And they Eric Adams went independent, and uh Cuomo lost the chair to this mom Donnie guy. But the thing about it is all three of them run, it's likely this mom Donnie guy wins. And I've seen a few different Congress people say, like, trying to cover up of how socialist this guy is, and say stuff like, oh, you just haven't talked to him enough and whatnot. But all of his clips seem pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many times that Republicans will call someone a socialist and it's not the case.
Right.
And I've probably brought this up before, but on every Saturday, I have something called Socialism Saturday where I watch the real far left getting together, having their live streams. We spy on the streams, we talk about it. So, like, I understand the way that they speak about these things. So one of
Do you
Mamdani's
really?
tweets was, oh yeah.
Wow.
So he one of his tweets was queer liberation means like the annihilation of the police essentially,
Yeah.
or it was like means abolishing the police. Queer liberation means abolishing the police. So this gets into queer Marxism, and Marxism in general. They believe that capitalism is equated to private property ownership. That's whenever they say capitalism, they mean private property ownership. They believe the police are the enforcers of private property ownership. So they want to get rid of the police and then get rid of private property. And what they consider private property is property that you can use to generate wealth. They consider the kids to be private property too, and they want to have the kids be raised by the state, be raised by the community,
Right.
and then they want to also abolish gender. So that's where the queer part comes into queer Marxism. So I'm
Really?
always like, when people are using the word queer as gay, it's like they don't know what they're talking about. Like they heard it as something and thought it was like gay, but true, like what queer really is a political ideology.
I had no idea.
Just because you call you like, and there will be plenty of people who don't know that are gay, that I see that, and they just call themselves queer. But then at the same time, they do fall in towards that socialist mentality. So it's kind of like maybe a little bit of that is self-conscious,
Yeah.
but no, the queer Marxism, they want to abolish the gender binary. And so this is the real reason they do drag queen story time, is not because they want to sexualize kids, but they want to teach kids that gender is a performance. And so like because they think that the gender binary and gender roles that also enforces capitalism. And essentially it breeds the next generation of proletarian workers, which upholds capitalism, and they're trying to abolish capitalism.
Wow.
And this even gets into Black Lives Matter too. You can see a lot of that leaking through there because of wanting to get rid of the police. They embedded themselves into that. They're embedding themselves into the No Kings protests.
Right. I'm in disbelief. I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, because really, like, what the people on the right will talk about is a lot of narrative. It was like a huge red pill for me, and I got this red pill last year. There's a lady named Dr. Karlin Boroshenko, and I mean, she's just phenomenal. But she's been studying the left for years now, and she just runs her stream on Saturday like a classroom, and she'll take questions and all that. We'll just watch and we'll break down what they're saying. because they have the same dictionary, but they have different definitions of their words and
Yeah.
things like that. So
It is funny too how it seems there's different cycles of different influencers that seem to use the same term or the same word over and over again for like 3 weeks to embed a certain word in the public, whether it's like, or a new term like the new normal, or some sort of like hot button word that you could use to describe what's happening within the LGBTQ community. It seems like there's a higher entity that rolls out this playbook to distribute amongst the masses.
yeah, it's because you can have that within the queer movement because there are a lot of trans people under the umbrella of that queer Marxist movement. And so you see that getting rolled out, and then you have people like myself who are, we'll just call ourselves like normal gays, and we're like, we don't want to be a part of all this crazy shit. Like we got our rights years ago, but when we got our rights ultimately, then people who have been fighting for them for so long stepped out of that, and there was a power vacuum within these organizations, and queer Marxists stepped into that power vacuum. And the trans movement, and I shouldn't say the trans movement, but there are things within the trans movement and like trans ideology, I could phrase it better, that benefit a queer Marxist ideology. And so it's like, I separate because I've got, trans friends that voted for Trump that aren't into all this weird shit. So I would never put all of this on the trans community, but it is a good chunk of them that really like are queer Marxists. And because they believe in abolishing gender and being fluid in gender and all that stuff, then they move into being trans,
Right.
and then that's like kind of that cycle that they go through.
Wow. So I think overall it would be fairly important to keep an eye on the New York mayor race. And by the way, how much can a mayor really do?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is who are the people that are going to get behind him? And one of the other things that I meant to say too, and I think you were referring to this, but this is why he was talking about abolishing private property, of course. So I heard that and I'm like, okay, well, this guy may just be, because he's from the Democratic Socialists of America,
Yeah.
apparently, which the true socialists that I listen to, which isn't just one party or anything, it's across the far left, but they consider the Democrat Socialists of America to be uh like they're not like true socialists, like they're too liberal, and actually real socialists hate liberals more than they hate Republicans. They call them neoliberals,
Neoliberals.
which is surprising to a lot of people. But
Yeah.
so I'm wondering if he is like a neoliberal that knows how to speak socialist, or if he like real, or if it's the reverse. Is he like in the Democratic Socialists of America, so that he could be stomached as a person to run, and then he's actually further left and like a true socialist, and that's like what he's going to try to implement and all that. But really, they know that to get to their goals, it does mean violent revolution,
Yeah.
which they call intifada. Which is that intifada is worldwide global communist revolution. And this is why when you talk to any socialists, they're going to tell you that real socialism has never been tried because it's never been worldwide.
Wow. If that ever got to that point, there's no coming back from it.
Exactly. It's just bad, but like, but that's how they can justify it in their head, and they'll keep pushing forward with it because they're like, well, actually, like real socialism hasn't been tried, so like it will actually work, and then the queer Marxists love to talk about the birthing pods that have been in development.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever heard about that, but then they're like, once we have these, then we truly break free of the gender binary, and women aren't doing the unpaid labor of child rearing and giving birth and all that because they think that plays in to upholding capitalism.
It it just feels like sometimes like we're this room full of like test gerbils or something as to like how they want to form the direction of how the government goes or how society goes. And it seems like naturally, I think what we agreed upon at some point hundreds of years ago was let's just vote a guy in and then he'll make some decisions here and there, but we'll all kind of mind our own business. And it has gotten so much more complicated. The more power you have, the more laws you can make, the more money that comes into it. And eventually it starts to get hijacked by these people who just want to kind of like rule the world. And it happens so easily. And anybody's mind could be changed so quickly.
Yeah, that's why I love that the founding fathers made the Declaration of Independence and like all everything that goes with it, Bill of Rights, the amendments, all that, like a living document,
Yeah.
because they knew that technology would advance and change. I think they were very aware of our origins and having had technology that was advanced in the past. It may have looked very different from what we use now, of course, but
Right.
like I think they were aware of that and they knew that we would rise again in our technological advancement. And then as that happens, we lose certain things. I think they even knew more than we can find right now because of their Masonic thing. And most people who signed the Declaration of Independence weren't Masons, but the ones that we remember are Masons. And we're under that same astrology. And we briefly talked about this, but now you see this whole Pluto and Aquarius thing that people there's lots of people doing lots of things right now, but the ones that we're talking about are the ones that are parts of secret societies, the ones that are Masons.
The Masons is a really interesting topic. Also, Masons held a lot of power at one time because they had the technology of building and certain structures. And it's even said that like Masons were the ones that had built the pyramid and had the technology to build the pyramids, which would make sense. You have brick and mortar. There, I know a few people that are Masons, and um, you know, they've always said there's no secrets, but I believe that you don't get secrets until you approach a certain amount of time in or a certain amount of degrees that you can earn. It is a very strange group. Have you ever dug in?
Yeah, yeah, and I would agree with you on the pyramid stuff. There's a guy, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but he built Coral Castle in Florida. And he said that he did this using sound technology. People saw him going around with this like type of rod that almost looked like a metal detector, and then he had a disc and like a cup looking type disc and stuff, and he like that's what he used to levitate these coral blocks and to form them too perfectly. So it would make sense that they did the same thing with the pyramids too. Like anything that needed to be built would have to come through the masons, as far back as we go in time. And that's how they made all these megalithic structures. So, and there's been plenty of tests that have been done on sound and levitation technology. They just can't always get it to balance. So that's the thing. If they can enclose it though, it properly magnetically, then they can do it. So and then there's even the idea of the Buddhist monk who they do like a deep chant and get that vibration going, and they're able to levitate stones, or they'll use like the trumpets, so like not really trumpets, but these weird instruments that create very low vibration that creates a levitation effect. So you've got all of these associations with sound and not only being a healing technology for the body, but being able to lift things and all that. And I think it's been carried on from the priests, if you want to say, of Atlantis. They made it into the priest caste, and then as things developed, they went out into secret societies and became masons and all that, and they've just been keeping things going and holding that technology behind the scenes, as well as like stuff like free energy technology that Tesla was going into.
Yeah. Yeah, it the story of Masons, the pyramids, and then also like even megalithic structures that were built even in the Grand Canyon that gets covered up. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that there's, like you can look at it at the surface level that I of the stuff I said, but then even there's still so much more too.
Yeah, like they just recently found that the pyramids are have these obelisk structures that go miles down into the ground. And so many archaeologists still, even with that proof, deny that it's like right in front of us after they use that sort of scanner onto the ground, that LiDAR scanner to identify that. It was the same thing too when they found all those in the Amazon rainforest when they found basically evidence of a civilization that had lived, I hundreds of years ago in the Amazon rainforest, and the result of the Amazon rainforest is, it's actually man-made and it just grew out of control.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think as the years go on, as and we're at the point where time and events are speeding up so much, I could even say as the months go on, you're seeing how prophetic the movie The Matrix was.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone is truly living in this matrix that's been crafted by narrative and perception and all of these things interlocking to create this artificial view of our reality that we live in. And when things come up against it, people will just rail against whatever they can. You can look at that with the situation of the person I know trying to get her institutionalized. You could look at that, or you could even just look at that with the findings that come forward, looking you dead in the face, especially in the last 2 years. And it's like, no, no, that's not going to change. We've already got this. Like every new finding now, they're trying to fit into the existing idea of what we know instead of rebuilding it from the ground up, because that's really, and people like you and I and people who come on the podcast, like we understand that like it's you need to unlearn everything that you've learned and start from scratch and be open to certain things and what's really gonna work here. Like to actually make sense of the world. I think that I'm able to, when I'm able to see events that are coming and accurately predict them, that's how you know that you have a good grasp on what's going on in the world. Again, that's not to say you know everything, but like events shouldn't be surprising you. They shouldn't be coming out of nowhere. And this is something that Nick Fuentes talks about. He's not into astrology. He's purely a geopolitical guy, and he has predicted so much of what's happened this year. And that's the same argument that he makes, coming from a completely different place as me, is like you should be able to look out and anticipate future events. That's how you have a good grasp of what's going on. Most people are, everything is a surprise to them. They're reacting to everything that happens.
Right.
So if that's what's happening to you, that's why no one's invested in crypto, because they think the money system's going to stay the same. They think that our empire is going to stay on top, all these things. But it's like you can kind of see with the energy, with everything, empires rise and fall. I think there's going to be a new world superpower at the end of all of this. And I kind of think it's going to be Russia. And that's not even me buying into any narrative about Russia right now. Or any, like I don't believe any of the narratives being spun about Russia, but I just am seeing the way that the power shifts have happened.
Yeah.
And I just think that Russia will be like the new breadbasket of the world. I mean, like look at Ukraine. It's the breadbasket right now of the world. So if they can get control of that, there's that idea of it. There's the Casey readings where he says like Russia will be the new superpower. Even if you look at the mystics that come out, we're moving into a more mystical time where the teachings that we discussed are going to be highly valued, especially in an Aquarian economy. Well, Russia has historically produced the most of those types of people. Russia and the Baltics.
Russia, Putin has a very high approval rating in Russia. When you listen to Putin's speeches that are translated, they're actually really based. And that's, I know, hard for some people to hear. But there's a lot about Russia that seems really based. And I've gone through a reprogramming myself to believe that maybe Russia isn't necessarily the bad guy, and I'm not saying that America's the bad guy either, but I think both have their faults. But we've been trained all this time to believe that Russia is evil, and I don't know. I really don't know if Russia's really that evil, especially when you listen to the speeches. They're not evil speeches.
Yeah, and I see the energy of we used to hold the energy of the Roman Empire. It came here and continued, but I see that energy being funneled into Russia. I mean, they're Orthodox Christian. They are of that bloodline, of that Roman bloodline. So, uh, and then on top of it, I think that the controls that we are at least told are put in place over the Russian people that oppress them. I think as the United States loses power, those types of controls can be lifted. And that's not to say that I trust Putin to do it or anything like that, but that's just more there's a reason that they are staving off degeneracy. We have massive degeneracy, and they have those controls in place because it keeps their society actually in a much less degenerate state than ours. I mean, just people are happier. There isn't all this weird stuff going on that we have going on. And people will look over at like, oh, they like banned like trans ideology or this or that, and it's like, that's just not going to be celebrated out in the open because you can look at, and I'm saying this as a gay man, you can look at the rise in homosexuality and transsexualism and all of these and the effects that it's having on society, on the happiness level of society, on the success of our society. And
Yeah.
there is a relationship there.
Yeah. You're right about that. And, I, I'm a big believer in people should live their life exactly how they want to live their life. But I think when you have, let's say, a population that is committed to whether somebody's gay or not, they're committed to the traditional wife and kid, and that's what this society is consistently churning out and continuously reproducing more and more workers into its society under a conservative traditional trajectory. It seems like it's a little bit less out of control.
Exactly. And I think that can trigger a lot of gay people. And I know you even said like gay people aside, but like I would even say like I don't like personally believe in gay people having kids. I believe in being there for my nieces and nephews and
Mm-hmm.
helping my brother and sister-in-law like raise them. And like I think that that is my spiritually, and this is my belief, but spiritually I think that is my role, and that's why I ended up being gay. But then there's also the conversation we've had of like born this way gay versus gay by perversion. How much has been of the subversive stuff has been pushed on people that has made them gay.
Yeah.
Like as far as like when I used to follow more people that do like the OnlyFans and all that like years ago, and watching them go from straight only stuff to being surrounded by gay men and then slowly delving in to now being full blown gay. So there is a part of that gets into degeneracy and the stuff that's really discussed in the Bible, that kind of stuff. But like it's just how much of this is a fantasy amongst gay men or gay women that wants to be lived out and not accepting like what your role is in this society of like, oh, well, I want to play like make believe and be like in a marriage when a partnership is the same. Like, I don't care if I'm tearing down an entire faith because I don't believe in that faith, but this is historically what marriage is it is a, Christian partnership between a man and a woman in order to raise a family successfully and to create that bond to where you can raise a family successfully. So, like in my opinion, like if I'm gonna get with a man, like why does it need to be called marriage? Why do I need to shit on the beliefs of so many people and spit in the face of their God just for it to make sense in my head? You know what I mean? For it to not even make sense in my head, but just to call it the thing that apparently I'm running away from because I'm rebuking the church. You know what I mean? It's like this weird juxtaposition.
That's a really good point and very well put. I think I think we see maybe more of a gay population now because I think more than ever in human history we have more time to think and more time to understand ourselves and learn about ourselves. And I think that causes some percentage of overthinking, another percentage of wanting to fit in, and then another percentage of actually understanding who they are. And then also society more so welcomes more than ever of, okay, go pursue what it is you're feeling. So in as you're saying, it makes a certain percentage of people feel better when they're accepted into the group. And the way that that was done essentially is we allowed marriage to happen between same-sex couples so they could have the same experience as you're saying the traditional Christian faith or Christian family, right?
Yeah, and my red pill with that was realizing And I had this conversation when I was young, and I like disagreed with it at the time, or I guess I didn't like what I heard.
Yeah.
It was with my like my best friend's father-in-law, and he was, I was over here talking about because that was close to when we were getting gay marriage, and I was, just talking about how I believed in gay marriage and all this stuff with him, and then he really sat with me and he broke it down with me about that how the domestic partnerships give you the same rights as marriage give you, and like all these things that I had heard in the news or this or that about not having certain rights, like was only true in a couple of states, and it's no longer true now after we had this because this was like 10 plus years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so really, like a domestic partnership is going to give you the same rights virtually everywhere that a marriage is going to give you. So that the marriage is, it's from the same people who don't like want to, in most cases, go to church wanting this title that is a religious title for their partnership, for their bond, for their union. And if you are Christian, okay, like you can make that argument too, I
Yeah.
suppose, like that you want that, but it is like even if you're going to a church that accepts homosexual people, which is a lot more churches these days, it is still historically viewed as a union between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
And like even religion aside, just historically, that's what it is. So if you can't procreate, then what is the point of being in a bond like that? Because the whole point of marriage is for the children, but you can't procreate. So
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, and even before that, if we want to go way back in time, it wasn't even about only having one person. You were purely for breeding, and then also go as a man going out and hunting and killing and doing whatever, and then you'd come back and breed and then go off again. It wasn't like you were bonded with a partner at that time. It was more so you're just that was part of survival.
Yeah, and I mean whether it was survival from like working on the farm, and like
Yeah.
having the extra farm hands being able to upkeep everything so you could like literally stay alive, or how that's evolved,
Yeah.
throughout.
Had nothing to do with attraction at the time or nothing to do with what you're really attracted to. It was more so of we need to build a crew to get this going. So that
Yeah, it was only when we got to like the largesse of the Roaring Twenties that marriage started to actually be about love for people.
which is why divorce rates are so high now.
Yeah. It
They
was like
make
this
it.
weird wave too, because you had the Roaring Twenties, then you had the Great Depression, and all like kind of going. So it was like this switch between uh like going for love, and then like also it was kind of like Weimar Republic also like vibes in the Roaring Twenties if you really think about it. But then going back to that simplicity, and this is where you have the Pluto Virgos too, like like it's and but then of course you go back, you get to the 50s,
Mm,
and then all of a sudden you've got it kind of going to the same thing really, like about their I don't know though. I'd almost say it's sorry, I'm kind of thinking this out loud now. I'd almost say there's kind of like this mix in between it, because some people felt forced into certain marriages, but then other people were like I would say people were forced into marriages, but they were going off and doing stuff on the side,
yeah,
in the
the
50s.
the case for the 50s is a lot of the parents were World War II vets, and those people were dealing with certain things, and I'm sure it affected parenting to a certain extent, and there may have been a lot of disconnection and emotion with those parents and those kids, and that was also a time when kids were told to go play out in the street and not come home until the light is on. And you know if you have a situation at home where, let's say, your parents are detached, and you're out and about for 12 hours a day, in the 50s, I think, as fun and as free as that sounds, I think there also was definitely some sort of emotional trauma that carried on for those people as parents going onward, because they had a parent that had fought in a war that probably fucked them up quite a bit, and it probably led to alcoholism in homes and abuse in homes, and those kinds of things carried on. And the idea of of being sensitive and being okay with your ideas out in public really didn't become a thing up until like I want to say our parents' generation, allowing us like Gen Z and millennials to be more emotionally in tuned with what's going on and not that numb feeling of just keep it to yourself and let it rot in your brain. And I
Yeah.
I think that's like a big domino effect that has caused as we're kind of wrapping all the way back around to the idea of a lot more people appearing to be gay now because the thought is okay and people are figuring it out earlier and earlier on in life, and that's a whole nother topic to debate. But um, I think that's why we see what we see now.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting as you kind of went through what those generations were about because that generational planet is Pluto. I misspoke earlier with Roaring Twenties though. That's Pluto Taurus. So like losing everything because Taurus is that abundance and the things that you have in the physical, and people lost it all. You know,
Yeah,
so it was like so that was the interesting part of Pluto Taurus there. And then but the boomers are actually they're Pluto Virgo and Pluto Leo. They're kind of split in between. So like silent generation and some boomers Pluto Virgo, and that is Virgo is that sign of the self, like or of the service rather. Uh, and that was kind of so more that's why they're the silent generation and like putting things they wanted to be a service of their kids so they like just pushed everything down but then the kids they didn't feel like they were being seen and that is the Pluto Leo, because we all know how Leos are, and they want to be seen and everything like that, and be expressive and all of that. So that's kind of what you see playing out in the boomers right now is they're literally falling over in the halls of Congress because they won't freaking let go and they want to still be seen at this age. It's
yeah,
like really bad. But you talking about our parents' generation makes so much sense because they're Pluto Libra. They want to be fair about things. They wanted to have that equality and they really dug into that. And you can see that with the stuff that was happening in the 70s. Some of the people involved with that were boomers too, but you could argue that that was coming more of a place of expressing themselves, whereas the Pluto Libras that were involved were much more of wanting that fairness.
yeah, yeah. It seems like each generation gets looser and looser with certain ideas. So meanwhile, we helicopter more than ever before.
Yeah, and I think there's, that it's kind of like that differentiation I made because you want people to be okay in their sexuality, and I had a great upbringing where I wasn't like sexually abused or having like weird stuff happen to me, and like I just as far back as I can remember, like I just felt this attraction towards like the same sex,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's like what there's a separate track of things that are being pushed on young men and like women too, but it is to a lesser extent. But what's being pushed on young men to like essentially turn them this way. And like I said, some people are born this way, and I don't want to trigger people, but there I think there's a huge percentage that have been had stuff pushed on them, whether it's through porn, through being touched, through like a multitude of different ways, like I said, like doing porn and then all of a sudden have being surrounded by gay men, there is this type of energy in the air that can really like twist. I don't want to say twist because it sounds bad or like I'm coming at gays, but like twist someone's energy into like doing that. And this is the issue, I'll just say on a personal note that I have with most of the gay community and why I've been single for quite some time is because it's just pretty it's insane some of the things that have been said to me when I just meet a person. It's like those people who are gay by perversion, it's like sex is always on their mind, and I would never want my children around those people.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah,
this gets into the whole like should gay people raise children? Well, there's a huge disparity of two gay men getting together. You probably heard about that one in the news recently, like where they abuse their children at a very young age. They'll get boys,
yeah.
adopt boys, and they'll just abuse them
Right.
like their whole childhood sexually.
You're incredibly important for this kind of movement because you're saying things that I can't say essentially in a lot of ways. And I appreciate you having that idea and that representation in that way, because you are correct from what it appears, and I don't know what it means to be gay. I've never been gay, so my perspective means nothing. All my perspective is a perspective that's been witnessing things from afar. And I have a number of gay friends, including yourself, and um, I don't know. I've never gotten personal with any of them, but what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because I've seen the videos online of like the parades with the leather and the whips, and like some of like the public acts of, if you want to call it affection, or more so just like these dirty nasty porn things in front of
Yeah,
kids,
public acts
and
of degeneracy.
yeah, yeah, it kind of puts a stain on the community, honestly. And again, there's nothing wrong with expressing yourself, but it's it's a shame to see it when you see it on video. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I'll say that again, the Weimar Republic vibes, and that's I know it's triggering to say and all that, but this is it. This is what was happening in
Yeah.
Nazi Germany and why things got so extreme. So going forward, as things get a bit more extreme to the right, in an attempt to save the country, because there is this relationship I'm talking about with degeneracy and the fall of the empire.
Mhm.
Like people, it shouldn't be shocking. You should be able to see it in the astrology. You should be able to see it in the same pattern as we just moved into that same alignment of World War II. You should be able to see these vibes of Weimar Republic coming up where things are getting twisted to the point of, like, this isn't to come out transsexual, but like there was transsexuality going on. The first really like successful transsexual surgeries were happening, and then we've been having that go on, but now all of a sudden, and this is at the same point in the astrology too, it's where people are starting to normalize relationships with minors, and it's saying that, like calling it different, like a minor attracted person, they're trying to
Yeah.
call it now, and all this stuff. And then like that, those were the books that were burned in Nazi Germany. People want to say it was like all these other things. No, it was, and this whole thing that was happening in the Weimar Republic was being led by, they didn't have this term for it at the time, but it was Zionist Jews. Just like you have with the Bolsheviks
Hmm.
going on in Russia too, and that whole thing that happened with the socialism and everything like that, is this was it was like Zionist Jews that were leading this, and this, when you get into the Talmud, I mean, it is, they do inherently believe in socialism. Like that is how
Hmm.
they want to run society, with them at the top, and they view us goyim, us non-believers, us Gentiles, as like lesser than them.
Yeah. There,
And that is what we deserve, apparently.
there's also articles in the Talmud that involve what we're just talking about, is involving younger persons in sexual acts.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Yes.
So you when you follow the money, when you follow the blackmail, it leads back to one place. And it's the same thing of what we're seeing funded into the streets, or what was being funded through taxpayer dollars, through all the LBTGQ communities, because I mean, there's got to, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but there has to be a high faction, a high percentage of, I would say, underage incidents within that group. I don't know. They've never released any kind of percentages, but I would assume.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if they have, it's never, I haven't gone and looked for it, so it's like that's something I should do, but it's like not, they're definitely controlling that if they've released it, because it hasn't come across us, our
Yeah.
field,
Right.
really.
Right. Yeah. Well, Rafi, you got anything else to add?
Well, the only thing, I always like to give a little astrology at the end.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got
Let's hear your astrology.
the big thing we're looking at right now is for the next 3 weeks, Mercury retrograde. So expect technology glitches, and they probably have already been happening, like what happened with us last week. Mercury had already entered shadow, so it's going to retrace back to that point. So you're already kind of ramping up. I've been like seeing technology glitches, miscommunications. It's going to feel like you just like don't have enough time for everything. It's like your stuff may still be structured the same way, but you're like constantly running late, not having enough time, all of that. For you, you're a Libra rising, so this is happening in your 12th house, actually, right? Would this be your 12th house?
I'm not sure.
This would be your 11th house. So
Okay.
within like networks of people and stuff like that, there will probably be like a going leading up to like the 31st, and it will peak at the 31st. You should see inspiration around how you're networking with people, how you're showing up in those networks, in the way you're just moving around about stuff, maybe how you're planning time
Okay.
around certain things, and like and where you're putting that energy with certain networks of people. But it has to do with like bigger networks and all that. But then Mercury itself is kind of smaller, so you could see it in your local social groups too. But yeah, like also like shipping delays, yeah, like issues with traffic and getting places late. So I'll make sure like next 3 weeks to just give yourself extra time for stuff if you can.
Okay. I will I will write that down. Anyone still listening? Like, subscribe, comment. Thank you for listening.